One of the questions I get asked the most from aspiring line striping business owners, guys who are just starting out, which machine should I buy? This is probably one of the most important questions you need to figure out when you're starting, simply due to the cost of the machine. Line striping machines can range pretty drastically. You can get some really small machines, even brand new, for as little as like $1,500, $2,000, or you could spend up to something like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So you might be wondering, like, where do I even start? I've read so many different types of machines. I want to start this business. Cam, what do I buy? Well, I'll tell you a little bit about what I did first, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts and what you might want to consider when you buy a line striping machine. So I started my business in 2018. Back then, it was just called laser line painting. It was just me. I had a full-time job, and I decided to buy a line striping machine to do some line striping on my evenings and weekends. Basically just make some extra money. In the town that I lived, there was a huge need for it. So I didn't know anything about striping. I didn't know which machine to buy, didn't know how to do it, had never even seen it done before. So I spent a lot of time researching this equipment thing, and I found something really interesting. I found a lot of reading material that suggested that you might want to consider a conventional line striping machine as opposed to an airless line striping machine. If this is something that you're watching right now and you're coming across the same thing and you're wondering, should I buy a conventional or an airless line striping machine? I will attempt to make this very simple for you. Do not buy a conventional line striping machine. Buy an airless line striper. Now, that might be a little bit harsh, but a big reason why, guys, is the technology that has come into airless line striping has become so advanced. There really is no competitive advantage at all to using a conventional line striping machine. That's a machine that has an air compressor on it, very old school, very heavy, and it does have a little bit of perks to it, but believe me, the money that you're going to spend, the weight of the machine, and how difficult it is to control, lack of technology, there really is no reason to not go for an airless line striping machine. So when you guys start Googling machines and you see Graco, whether it's a 3400, a 3900, or a Titan, an 850, Powerliner 3500, those are all airless line striping machines. Those are what you want to use. Believe me, you don't want to start your business with a conventional machine. Now, once I had that figured out in 2018, I started calling around a lot of other contractors in other cities, asking them if they had any line striping equipment for sale. I didn't really want to buy used equipment to start. In fact, to this day, I despise used equipment in the sense that I just don't like to look at auctions. I don't like looking at marketplace. That's just not who I am. I prefer to buy new. But back then, I only had like $5,000, $6,000 saved up to start this business. So the majority of that money was going to a piece of equipment. Ultimately, I couldn't find any used equipment, and so I decided to pull the trigger on a brand new Graco 3400. Now, looking back on that, I don't regret that decision at all. That was a great machine. In fact, to this day, our company still has that machine. We don't do a whole lot with it now, but it's sitting outside in the shop. My first year and a half, that's the only machine I used in my business. And I did a lot of crazy stuff with that machine. It's really designed for smaller jobs, but I took it out to some pretty large jobs. I painted an entire small town in central British Columbia 1 year with it. And the thing when you buy Graco or Titan machines, guys, is they are incredibly well-built machines. Like, Graco and Titan have been doing this for decades. They build high quality stuff. It's designed to last you a long time, easy to work on, etc. So I don't regret that decision at all. I think looking back on it, if I had known that I was going to grow my business into what it is now, which is 13 people in the company, we do over $1 million in revenue, I probably would have invested into a bigger machine to start. Something like a Graco 3900. There's a big jump when you start buying those more expensive machines, particularly with Graco. You get a lot of technology advances on them. Things like automatic guns, automatic layout. Usually a lot of the lasers come standard on those machines. And so those are the kinds of investments in the technology that make you a lot more efficient in the field when you're striping. However, the important thing is, if you are just starting out and you're like me in 2018 and you didn't have a ton of money right now, if you don't want to spend $10,000-$20,000, don't feel like you have to. I see a lot of guys questioning which machine they should buy, and they feel like, if I don't buy this $12,000 line striping machine, I'm going to be left in the dust. My competitors are going to eat me for lunch because they got bigger machines. In my experience, guys, it simply isn't true. You can do a lot of revenue and grow your business quite well with a smaller machine, like a 3400 from Graco, like a Powerliner 3500 from Titan. Those are great machines to start with, easy to use, easy to work on. So there's one machine in particular I want to talk about that gets a lot of heat online, and if you post about this in a Facebook group, should I buy this machine, you'll see a lot of people just get roasted for it. Titan makes a very small machine called a Titan Powerliner 850. It's easy to find, it's available on online retailers. I've personally never used the machine, but I've had a lot of experiences with guys and talked to them about what they think of it. And here's what you need to know. That machine is very small. It is a airless line striping machine, but there's a couple things that don't work well on it. Number one, it isn't rated for use with solvent-borne paint. So if you're deciding right now, am I going to use a waterborne or a solvent-borne paint, that's a super important thing to keep in mind. If you're thinking of a Titan Powerliner 850, you cannot use solvent-borne paint in that machine. The pump simply is not rated for it. So you will be limited to a waterborne paint. The second kind of downside of that machine is it's very small. Now, on one hand, that's really convenient because it's lightweight, easy to move around. But every component on that machine is very small. One thing that a lot of guys notice when they buy it is not just the size of the pump, but also the tires on that machine. Because they're very small, skinny tires, they're more prone to get out of alignment, get some flat spots on them. And if you get a flat spot on your tire, it's going to be very difficult to paint a straight line. Now, as much as those are two pretty significant disadvantages, I would still consider buying this machine if you're starting a business. And here's why. It's pretty rare that you can get a machine that produces a nice 4-inch line for the low cost that a Titan Powerliner 850 does. I would argue that if you're just starting out and you have no real significant plan to scale the business quickly, you just want to get your feet wet, build up some customers, send some invoices, get some revenue in, that's a good machine to start. What I see a lot of guys do, and one of the guys in my academy that I teach did this with his machine, is he could only afford to buy the 850. So he did that, he did a number of smaller jobs, and he saved up his money to buy a larger machine. And he ended up buying a Graco 3900 after that. And what a lot of guys do is they'll keep that Titan Powerliner kind of like as a backup machine, or they'll only use it to spray a certain color like blue paint. And I think that's a great way to go. If you could spend less money to start your business and instead make money quicker and reinvest that back into the company, I think that's a good way to go. So do your homework on that Powerliner 850. It's not a machine that I've used. I've only gone to a lot of guys and asked them what they think of it, but I wouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed at all if that's all you can really afford to get going. You can do some pretty cool stuff and get your business started with that machine. So to sum it all up, trying to find your first striping machine, you probably have a lot of questions. Which machine should I buy? I would just say two things to sum it up. Number one, if you don't have an immediate plan to grow the business quickly, don't feel like you need to go invest in a brand new, $10,000 machine like a Graco 3900. Those are great machines and you will have it forever if you buy it, but it's absolutely not necessary. The smaller machines cost a lot less and you can get going with work very quickly and not having to break the bank and start making some money, which then you can eventually upgrade in the future. However, I would say that if you do have some capital behind you, and I see a lot of guys more and more nowadays who are coming into the industry with the intention of producing a lot of business very quickly, then I would consider spending up to get something like a Graco 3900 or a Titan equivalent. All right, hopefully that helps you guys. Starting out is super fun, but it's also pretty stressful trying to find the machine. If you want any more information, reach out to me anytime. Send me a DM on Instagram. We'll put it down here at Stripe It Podcast. You can also send me an email anytime, cam@stripeitpodcast.com. For all you guys starting out, get a good machine, have fun with it, and reach out anytime if you have any issues.